It was another busy Monday morning at Silvertech Enterprises, a prestigious tech company headquartered in the heart of Manhattan. The towering glass building shimmered under the morning sun, reflecting the hustle and ambition of the corporate world within. Employees, dressed in sharp suits and armed with their lattes, moved quickly through the lobby, exchanging greetings and hurried conversations. In the midst of this polished chaos, Margaret Daniels moved unnoticed. Wearing her standard cleaning uniform, a plain blue shirt and black pants, she quietly pushed her cart of cleaning supplies through the gleaming marble floors. At 54 years old, Margaret was a fixture in the building, her presence often overlooked by the same people she greeted with a warm smile every morning. Margaret was a tall woman with a strong frame and an air of quiet dignity. Her dark skin glowed with a healthy sheen, and her silver-streaked hair was always neatly tied back. Despite her humble role, she carried herself with confidence, a trait that puzzled many of the young executives who passed her by. One such executive was Ethan Caldwell, the CEO of Silvertech. Ethan was known for his ruthless business tactics and an ego to match. He prided himself on his accomplishments, rarely acknowledging those he deemed beneath him. To him, Margaret was just part of the building's decor, a background figure, invisible and irrelevant. "Morning, Mr. Caldwell," Margaret greeted cheerfully as Ethan started past her one morning. He barely glanced at her, muttering under his breath, "Keep the lobby spotless, will you? First impressions matter." Margaret smiled politely, though she noticed the condescension in his tone. She continued her work, humming softly to herself, unfazed by his attitude. But not everyone was as dismissive as Ethan. Lisa Hernandez, a young intern who had recently joined Silvertech, often stopped to chat with Margaret during her breaks. Lisa admired Margaret's warmth and wisdom, often saying Margaret was the most insightful person she had met in the building. "You know," Lisa said one afternoon, "you should be running this place, not cleaning it." Margaret chuckled. "Life has a funny way of teaching us lessons, Lisa. Sometimes, you have to start from the bottom to see how things really work." Lisa didn't fully understand Margaret's words, but she admired her positivity. The humiliation. One afternoon, Silvertech hosted a company-wide meeting in the Grand Conference Hall. Ethan stood on the stage, addressing his employees with the usual bravado. Margaret was tasked with cleaning the area afterward, but she arrived early and decided to stand at the back, listening quietly. As Ethan wrapped up his speech, a few senior executives gathered near the podium, cracking jokes. Their laughter echoed through the hall, drawing attention. "Hey, isn't that the cleaning lady?" one of them sneered, pointing at Margaret. Another executive, Paul Bennett, added, "Maybe she's taking notes on how to mop the floors better." The group erupted in laughter. Ethan, hearing the commotion, glanced at Margaret and smirked. "Let's not scare her off, gentlemen. After all, who would clean up after us?" Margaret stood there, her expression calm, despite the sting of their words. She met Ethan's gaze with a steady look, said nothing, and quietly left the room. The twist. What the executives didn't know was that Margaret wasn't just a cleaning lady. Years ago, Margaret had been a brilliant software engineer and one of the early pioneers in the tech industry. She had co-founded a tech startup that eventually merged with another company, Silvertech Enterprises. Due to unforeseen personal circumstances, Margaret stepped away from her leadership role, but she never sold her shares or relinquished her stake in the company. Despite her humble appearance, Margaret was one of the largest shareholders in Silvertech, holding significant voting power in major company decisions. She chose to remain behind the scenes, observing how the company was being run, waiting for the right moment. The board meeting. A few weeks later, an emergency board meeting was called. Rumors swirled around the office. Whispers of financial mismanagement and declining investor confidence spread like wildfire. Employees speculated that major leadership changes were imminent. Ethan, as confident as ever, strode into the boardroom, expecting to defend his position. He was shocked to see Margaret seated at the long, polished table with the rest of the board members. "What is she doing here?" Ethan blurted, pointing at Margaret. The board chairperson, Robert Langston, cleared his throat. Margaret Daniels is here because she holds a significant share of this company, enough to call this meeting. She's requested to address the board. Ethan's jaw dropped. You're kidding me. The cleaning lady? Margaret stood up, her presence commanding the room. Let me clarify something, Mr. Caldwell. I may clean floors now, but I helped build this company from the ground up. While you were busy patting your ego, I was watching you mismanage the very foundation we laid. And now, it's time for accountability. Ethan's face turned red. You can't seriously think you can oust me. Margaret remained calm. It's not just me. The board and shareholders have lost faith in your leadership. Effective immediately, we're voting on your removal. The vote was swift and decisive. Ethan was out. As security escorted Ethan from the building, the employee, many of whom had witnessed his mistreatment of Margaret, stood in stunned silence. Then one by one, they began to applaud. Margaret, now officially reinstated as a leading advisor to the board, stood at the entrance, watching Ethan leave. She didn't smile or gloat. Instead, she turned to the gathered employees and said, "Let this be a lesson, never underestimate anyone. Every person in this building deserves respect, no matter their role. Now let's rebuild this company, with integrity." The applause grew louder. Lisa, standing nearby, couldn't hide her grin. She approached Margaret and whispered, "Told you, you should be running this place." Margaret chuckled softly. Sometimes, karma just needs a little push. From that day forward, Silvertech transformed into a company known not just for its technological innovation, but also for its culture of respect and inclusion, thanks to the black cleaning lady who was far more than she seemed.